You stood up with a clear purpose. You knew exactly what you were going to get. You walked into the room and it was gone. Nothing else changed. The house was the same, your body was the same. You crossed a threshold and a thought was removed. This happens to almost everyone, multiple times a week, and for decades, nobody knew why. You might think you were distracted. You might think the task wasn't important enough to stick. You might think your memory is just getting worse. None of those things are true. Something else is happening, something your brain is doing without asking permission. The strange part is this: you can be walking towards something specific. You can have that intention locked in place. You can walk the exact same distance across a room, but if you do it through an open door instead of staying in one space, the intention dissolves. Same distance, same time, same mental effort. The door is the only variable, and it erases the thought. This should not work, but it does. In 2011, Gabriel Radvansky at the University of Notre Dame ran an experiment to figure out why. He wanted to test whether crossing through a doorway actually caused forgetting, or whether people just thought it did. So he took participants and gave them objects to carry. He had them perform memory tests in two conditions: one where they walked through a doorway to get to a second room, and another where they traveled the same distance inside a single large room. No door, just space. The results were clear. Walking through a doorway caused more forgetting than traveling the same distance with no threshold to cross. The physical distance was identical, the time spent walking was identical, but the door created a measurable gap in memory. Radvansky ran this experiment in both virtual environments and in real physical rooms. The effect held in both. It was not about the illusion of movement on a screen, it was about the actual crossing of a boundary. So, why does a doorway do this? Radvansky proposed a mechanism. He called it an event boundary. The brain, he argued, does not store your experience as one continuous stream the way a video camera records footage. It segments experience into discrete events, separate episodes, files, and when you cross a boundary, when you move from one space into another, the brain closes the file on the previous event and opens a new one. What you were holding in the old file gets dropped. The evidence for this is stronger than just the doorway experiment. Researchers went back to test something else. They took the participants who had walked through the doorway and returned them to the original room. If this were about context, if the brain just needed the right environmental cues to remember, memory should have come back. It didn't. Performance in the original room was no better than in the second room. The place didn't matter. It was the crossing that mattered. The researchers tested the idea further. They took people reading a written narrative and inserted boundaries between sentences. Not physical doorways, just text saying "a while later." Readers had more trouble recalling which sentence followed which one when a time boundary sat between them. It was not really about doors at all. They even tested imagination. When people simply imagined walking through a doorway, forgetting increased. The physical reality of the door was irrelevant. The brain's registration of a boundary crossing was what did it. This is a real phenomenon. It is not a flaw. It is a feature. But there is a complication. In 2021, a team led by McFadyen published research in BMC Psychology called "Doorways Do Not Always Cause Forgetting: A Multimodal Investigation." They ran 4 experiments across virtual reality and real physical movement, and they found that the doorway effect only occurred under certain conditions. It happened when people were moving passively. It happened when working memory was already loaded. But when people were in control of their movement, or when they were not cognitively overloaded, the effect diminished or disappeared. This is not a debunking, this is a refinement. And it makes the finding more interesting, not less. because the doorway erases you precisely when you are most vulnerable to it, when your memory is already maxed out, when you are juggling too much. When you walked into the kitchen holding 3 thoughts and 2 mental tasks, that is when the threshold does its work, which is, of course, exactly the state you are in when this happens to you. Think about the moment it occurs. You are not calm. You are not focused on a single task. You are holding multiple things. You are in motion. You are thinking about what comes next. You walk through a doorway and one of those thoughts evaporates. Your brain is not broken. Your brain is doing something fundamental. You experience your life as if it is one continuous film, one long take from birth to now. But it is not stored that way. Your brain is constantly making decisions about where one episode ends and the next begins. It is drawing boundaries, creating segments, filing things away, and moving on to the next frame. Most of the time, this process is invisible. You do not notice it happening. Your sense of continuity masks it. The stitching is seamless. The empty doorway moment is one of the rare times you get to watch this process operate. You get to see the machinery. You get to observe the housekeeping that runs on you constantly, briefly visible. A thought was held, a boundary was crossed, the file was closed, the thought was released. This happens thousands of times in your life. The doorway is just the one moment where you notice.